Alright. This one isn't quite as planned.
No.
This actually stems from I was going to do when I did Cloverfield and The Host together.
Mm-hmm.
The original plan was to do Cloverfield with Pacific Rim. So I hadn't seen it since it had first come out, so I watched Pacific Rim again. And while I was watching it, I was like, I'm getting I don't know what exactly it is, but I'm getting real Independence Day vibes from it. Don't ask me why. I really don't know. Apart from maybe it's the heroic speeches. I don't know, but I decided to postpone Pacific Rim and put The Host with Cloverfield, and then wait till Independence Day came out to do this.
Right.
Which, of course, is weird regardless, since I've already reviewed Pacific Rim.
Yes.
Only trouble is that was 3 years ago, and I was still tripping over myself doing this, like I sometimes still do. And it was basically... I really don't recall expressing much of what I was feeling about this movie in that review. So, hopefully this gives me a better chance to do that. But we're going to start with Independence Day, which, as we've mentioned, this is being shot on Friday, so it was last night that we actually saw this on a theater screen, because we did the double feature with Resurgence. And that was my first time seeing it all the way through in quite a while, and on the grand scope of a theater screen, which is significantly different for a movie like this. So, just a real quick touch on the fact that the movie, as Resurgence told us over and over and over again until our heads exploded, was that this movie is 20 years old. Yes, this movie was 20 years ago. The events of this movie took place 20 years ago. We are aware. Thank you, Resurgence, for reminding us.
Over and over and over again.
And so, watching it, the first thing I wanted to bring up is, and I'm not just talking about effects either, I'm talking about the whole aesthetic. It's very interesting to me that this movie was made in 1996, yet on a theater screen in 2016, it looks brand new.
Agreed.
Which is really impressive. Sure, Bill Pullman looks pretty younger, and Will Smith looks a lot younger, and Mae Whitman is like a tiny little girl, and yeah, the movie looks exactly like we were watching anything else this year, which is either a testament to a movie made in 1996 or a shot at movies made in 2016. Depends on what you're looking at. But no, it's just, I feel like it's just really held together aesthetically for this long, which is great. Especially those effects. So there are plenty of scenes in Resurgence where the effects aren't as good as they are here. As are kind of a lot of movies. Especially that do the mass destruction thing. And I also really love the opening moments of it, because regardless of being what's considered to be this big stupid movie, they actually kind of do get a genuinely apocalyptic feel going when all this stuff is starting to happen, and we see everything covered in shadows, which I think was the teaser trailer. I believe the teaser trailer was just the monuments being covered in shadows, and then this shot. Which is really good. Roland Emmerich's movies have really, really good marketing. Even regardless of what you say about them, their teaser trailers are usually really, really good. Wasn't his Godzilla, as much as everybody hates it, wasn't his marketing for Godzilla, unprecedented?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, for Godzilla, the only thing that comes to mind for me is the soundtrack. Still strong to this day.
And yeah, there is, there's some foreshadowing in there that's not necessarily all that subtle. Like, there's a character at the beginning of the movie watching the day the Earth stood still. There's one of the kids outside, and he's with his toy gun, and he's shooting aliens. Yeah. Which, yes, it is worth noting this was only the year before Men in Black. And I wonder if when Men in Black came out, people thought Will Smith was going to get typecast strictly as an alien fighter. I wonder. Yes, you walk up to Will Smith in 1996 and say, that's not the last time you're gonna punch an alien in the face in a big budget blockbuster movie. And not necessarily in a franchise. I mean, yes, it was eventually, but you get what I mean. And yeah, Emmerich's whole, monument fetish with we just kind of keep flashing, for the first part of this movie, just to different locations. And kind of for no reason at all, one of these flashes is the Statue of Liberty. And it's just, we don't know if it's an overly patriotic thing, or if it's the, look at all these grand things before we tear them apart thing. I don't know. I'm not sure I'd call Roland Emmerich a patriotic guy with how many times he's ripped America apart with his movies. But it's still fun to watch regardless, so maybe there's a bit of an anarchist in all of us that enjoy these movies anyway. And it is a bit hard to judge after last night, because I always like this movie in a guilty pleasure kind of way. Like, it's never a movie I really loved, but I really liked watching it. And the thing is that when you watch this movie, and then 2 minutes later, the theater plays Resurgence. Oh my good God, does this movie look good? This movie looks masterful now.
Oh my God, I know.
To the point that I think I like it better than I already did. But seeing it on that, honestly, seeing it on a theater screen actually helps. It's very interesting to watch a movie from 1996 when you, I mean, I know people like to get all pissy when you throw a nostalgia factor into why you like something. But seriously, being this old and seeing a blockbuster from the 90s on a theater screen that I didn't see it when it first came out. My dad had it on video, and that's how I saw it for the first time. With the holographic case where 1 minute the White House is intact and the next it's blowing up. But just seeing that it's an interesting feeling. And it makes you kind of feel something that movies today kind of don't really make you feel much anymore. Unless they're Pacific Rim or something like it. Pacific Rim is certainly the closest we've come in a while, I think. But anyway, and yes, we do start to get these shots that became instantly infamous from this movie. Like this one, for instance, has been referenced time and time again. Austin Powers 2 is a most blatant example.
Oh, yeah.
But just many, many times, it's very much, this image became, also when DVD started becoming a big thing. This is one of the movies that was always advertised. When DVD and, surround sound and, high definition and all that other shit. When they were advertising it, one of the clips they would always show to advertise why you needed all this different stuff for your system was this shot of the White House blowing up.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a perfectly good reason for that. Now, in the context of the movie, though, maybe it's not as awesome as you were remembering, given the other stuff that's going on. I think about this scene between Will Smith and Vivica Fox, where Will Smith decides, we gotta cancel all our shit, and I gotta put my uniform on and go to take care of this and see what it's about. Where they're having this tender moment about their relationship and where they stand and what's going to become of them and all that. And it's very much like the opening scene of any other movie. uh, where it's they're at home and there's a bit of a strain, but they still are they really love each other. But he's got to go do his thing, and she's got to go do her thing. And while this tender music is playing, and we're having this moment in this relationship, we are perfectly aware of the giant spaceship you can see outside the living room window that's hovering over the city. That moment where he's talking about, what the problem is, and she's like, "Oh, you mean this?" And she throws the curtain open, and it's like there's a giant spaceship outside.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre scene. It's very odd, especially with all the neighbors doing their thing, and how it's there's like riots happening and looting, and they're just doing their little boyfriend girlfriend banter. It's a weird thing. The Full House music in the background. It's weird. Tonally for sure. But yes, this was this definitely took part in Will Smith's rise to superstardom, because like I said, it was the year before Men in Black and the year after Bad Boys. So he was like God here. In his kind of the comedic quality, but also the suave, cool thing that he could bring and combine together, works really well for this character. One of my favorite moments in the movie is, of course, when he gets caught talking to Harry Connick Jr. when the guy asks him if there's something he'd like to add, and his response is just, "I'm just anxious to get up there and whoop E.T.'s ass."
That's a great line too. Great delivery by Will Smith.
Yeah. He's got all those lines like "Welcome to Earth," and now that's what I call a close encounter. It's such a fucking 90s movie. But that's why we love it. Come on.
Oh yeah.
There's all kinds of cliche characters, of course. You got Robert Loggia as like the superior guy. You've got Bill Pullman as our stoic president. You got Randy Quaid as the drunken underdog that ultimately saves the day when no one believes in him. If there's one problem this movie definitely has, there's too many characters in it. There's so many characters here, and a lot of them don't matter. We love him. We all love him. We all do. But my God, why did we spend so much time with Harvey Fierstein? Just for him to be one of the first people to blow up. There was really no reason. Like, maybe, I guess, to show kind of just how expansive the loss of life was. We wanted to get to know as many people as we could, and then just some of those people we really got to know, kind of, just get wiped out in that just one big attack before the retaliation. I get it, but I don't know. There's a lot of characters here, and we don't really need to focus on a lot of them. Randy Quaid's kids, for instance, who I assume that's how they related to him. I don't think we ever really are sure. But those kids that hang out with Randy Quaid, we'll say. And all that. One of which was Lisa Jacob from Mrs. Doubtfire. She was the oldest.
Oh, yeah.
She's like a writer now or something. And that's the thing, too, is that Randy Quaid story. It happens a lot throughout the movie, but here at this particular place, and the chess scene between Goldblum and Judd Hirsch as well. While it's not near as bad as Resurgence by any means whatsoever, we get a lot of those scenes where it's characters talking about stuff they should already know about, just for the audience's sake. For instance, the scene in the diner when Randy Quaid's drinking and all that, and we don't have his backstory yet. So those guys say, "Hey, remember that time you were abducted by aliens? What'd they do to you, huh? Did they do sexual stuff to you?" And we're immediately informed that this thing was 10 years ago. It's like, this thing happened 10 years ago. Why are people sitting in the bar with him saying, "Hey, remember that thing that happened? Let's talk about that." hey, did they do this? I'm sure we would have asked you these questions in 10 years, but, you know, the audience needs to hear what's going on with you, so. Like I said, the same scene with, the same thing happens with the chess scene when we're discussing Goldblum's married life or former married life. The woman who just happens to work in the White House. Yes, this is another one of those 90s blockbuster things where everything is convenient. It's ridiculous how easily Will Smith finds Vivica A. Fox and the fact that she has the president's wife with her. It's but needless to say, you know, when you look at what you're looking at, those little things kind of seem minuscule. when you think about the fact that aliens blew up the White House and the president gets in his own fighter jet and fights them all, the fact that coincidences happen seems kind of a bit of a moot point, don't you think? Just a little bit. You know, I'll be an apologist for this movie. I don't fucking care. And yeah, on top of the small characters we don't really care about, and on top of Will Smith characters we do care about, there's people like Goldblum and Goldblum reprising one of his lines from Jurassic Park when they're flying out right before the explosion. He actually says the "must go faster" line. Once again, he's very, very Goldblum here. Like his job, his career is to be Jeff Goldblum, and that's what he does, and it's great.
He's great at it, exactly.
Sometimes he plays not so trustworthy characters, like Igby Goes Down. He played kind of a shady dude, but other than that, he's usually pure, full-on Goldblum, and that's what we love about him. And then there is Bill Pullman's character, who I basically said everything I need to say about him in the Resurgence review, which is basically, it's probably ridiculous and it's very, you know, cheesy action movie, but I don't know. There's just something about a president as kind of a stoic quality as Bill Pullman gives him here, that will avenge his wife's death by actually getting in a fighter jet himself and fighting aliens off, despite being the president. It's just a really awesome thing. And like I said, it's cheesy, of course, obviously. Like when you think cheesy movie scenes, this is probably close to the top. But that speech that Bill Pullman gives, is really, really earned its place in movie history. Absolutely. So yeah, there's of course, obviously, it's going to be a dumb movie. Look, talking about the scene in the tunnel with the dog, and that's the thing too, is we have this massive, massive scene that's gone down in movie history when they strike for the first time and they're taking out all the big monuments and they blow up the White House and just all that mass death and all that. And how does this big, epic centerpiece that sets everything, the rest of the movie off, end with a dog jumping in slow motion with an explosion behind
I
him?
love it! That scene is amazing! It looks so cool!
What?
I don't know what made me gravitate towards that. I just love that scene.
Not to mention the fucking dog's name is Boomer.
Yes!
Oh, man.
So good.
But I mean, come on. Could you have not ended that big epic scene in a different way? Oh, God Lord. Okay. And yes, this is a movie that ends with, I mean, you give War of the Worlds shit for, like, all we had to do was sneeze on them.
Mm.
And then Jeff Goldblum comes in and says, I know how to stop them. I'll give them a computer virus. It actually comes up with, like, the skull and the crossbones. And I do also love, by the way, since his name is David, that when he turns his computer on, it's Hal that greets him.
Of course. That made me laugh.
So yeah, there's a lot you can, like, shake your head at in this movie, but, I mean, come on. It's, like I said, I don't know if it's the double feature with Resurgence or seeing it on a theater screen or what it was, but, I just really, really liked it this time around. I mean, I know, it's very And I mean, yeah, for a while it takes a little bit because, like I said, there's way too many characters, and we spend so much time on these characters that don't mean anything. It makes the beginning pretty slow. But I mean, once everything goes down and like all shit breaks loose, there's just kind of no stopping it. And I love that, and it's very much it's very much a poster child for the big blockbuster. That's become just a classic staple of movies in general. And it's surprisingly well shot too. I really like when, I know I'm really stretching here by dropping this movie's name. I don't really know any other way to put it. Will Smith basically kind of gets his Lawrence of Arabia moment with the scene in the desert where all the campers are coming and he's dragging that alien's ass behind him. I always thought that was a really cool desert shot because it's so wide and vast and enormous like the rest of the movie. And there's something Resurgence that fucked up that this movie does well too, and that is that most of the time the scenes that aren't a big action scene are kind of in this reality. I know it's a stretched reality, I know, by all means, but there's just something here that keeps it a little bit grounded. And like I said, almost like that apocalyptic feel in the opening scenes feels relatively real. And then there's the moment where the president's wife dies and he actually has to, like, for a movie like this, that's a really heavy scene where he has to tell his daughter, yeah, she's sleeping. She's just sleeping. It's okay. For a movie like this, that's heavy. And like I said, that he basically mourns overnight, and then basically, I mean, he's doing it because he's the president, and he kind of has to, he's hoping to save the world when he does this. But it's also like an avenging my wife kind of thing when he gets in that fighter. It makes it cooler. Gives it just a tiny bit of depth, if you actually want to put that word in this movie. So yes, it's definitely that. It's just one of those quintessential big blockbuster movies, which of course is going to come with stupidity, but it just comes with the territory. There are smart blockbusters out there. There's not many, but they are out there, and this isn't one of them. But have you ever heard anybody say, I love Independence Day because of how smart it is?
Nope.
Why do they love Independence Day? Because it's big and massive and kind of awesome. And Will Smith in the 90s. Post Bad Boys, pre Men in Black. That's what we need. And real quick, we'll go on to Pacific Rim. Like I said, I already reviewed this, but I just want to touch on some things and kind of get a better grasp on what it is exactly that I love about it so much, especially since it's been 3 years since it came out, and I've seen it a number of times since then. I underestimated how many times I'd seen it when I said that at the beginning of the video. I've actually seen it probably like 4 times. Because I'll find any excuse, of course. Though it is worth noting, though this can't be repeated, when we saw it in theaters, it was in 3D. Which typically I am not, if I can take the other option, I take it. I really don't prefer 3D. But wow, this movie looks really fucking good in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
From the very, very opening, all the way through. From the, like that opening where it's like the stars, and then suddenly we're like under the sea when like everything's rising and like the fish and shit. It just looks really, really good. And of course, that goes out saying about the action scenes themselves. Which this movie is a lot of. And of course, when it begins, well, for starters, it's a good way to get the background. I like that we get all the background like that at the beginning, because it's, this war has broken out between us and them. And then us, building these gigantic, building the Jaegers, obviously. And then, but the thing about it is, once we have the prologue, I love that there's a jump in time. And it's like, 7 years into the war. So I love that there's not like a whole. We just get that one prologue, and then we just get put right in the middle of the war. Because if that's not the way it went, this movie probably would have been super, super slow, and probably not in a good way. But the way it established everything so clearly in this opening, and then was able to just drop us into it and let us go, is definitely beneficial. And yeah, obviously when we meet Charlie Hunnam and his brother, it's clear they're kind of going for like a Top Gun vibe. They're very much going for the, like, they're very cliche characters, but it almost feels like that was kind of the intention. To where we kind of have these cliche characters with their cliche lines, but within this futuristic world, there's almost like an intentional contrast there. So I did really like that. And even though I say they're cliche characters, but even so, the great thing about it is that they're still really good, believable characters too. And characters that you actually don't want to see die, that you actually have a little bit of investment in. Especially with this whole... The movie is on for like 17 minutes before we even see the title. Because it's just this grand opening that gives us all of it at once, where we get the prologue, and then we get character introduction, and we kind of get where they stand and what they do, and then one big action scene that ends in tragedy, which is going to give us backstory. All of this before a title. And we get this awesome scene that happens on the cover here that just shows you how massive this whole thing is. There are some cliches in there that maybe aren't for the better, like the scene when when Rinko Kikuchi desperately wants Idris Elba to let her fight and be in the Jaeger with Charlie Hunnam, and she's like, I can drift with him. Just let me show you. And finally, we get that scene where they duel, and it's the whole thing where it's he's not expecting to be taken down by a woman, and it's like, are we still doing this? This was 2013, and still. In the moment when he says, I'm not going to dial down my moves, and she's like, okay, then neither will I. And we're like, oh, we didn't expect that from a woman. It kind of feels like that. But she's portrayed as a badass for the rest of the movie with a tragic backstory, so it's all good. It's and it is one of those cases where the dialogue isn't exactly original. It's definitely one of those movies where pretty much any time one character says a line, you know what the next line is. It's like when Charlie Day is saying that he's always wanted to see a kaiju up close and personal, and he's like real psyched about it. And Charlie Hunnam just gives him that look and puts his hand on his shoulder, and you just say, even if you've never seen the movie, you say the line with him. No, you don't. I believe there's a scene. Obviously, Idris Elba is our big superior, who's throwing out all the orders and is in charge and won't let people do the things they want to do, or is making people, bringing him back from his, leave or whatever. Yes, there is a scene of Idris Elba saying, "You disobeyed a direct order." Yeah, I know, but there's another one. There's probably the worst offender of this. There is actually a moment where somebody says in this movie, "Get on your feet, old man." Yes, obviously the dialogue is very much cliche, but like I said, with the futuristic setup that we're in and the way these heroes are portrayed, I almost feel like that's on purpose. Because it kind of puts the classic in with the futuristic. And it's a very interesting balance we have. Because another thing, bringing back the classic angle, is obviously this is based on a lot of, old source material that Guillermo del Toro likely fell in love with as a child and basically recreated for this movie in a bigger and badder way. And just this whole idea of there are giant monsters attacking the city, how will we stop them? With giant robots that are built to punch them in the face. It's clear. It's basically like a child playing with action figures on a gigantic, massive scale. Something most of us probably dreamed of when we were like 5 or 6. or 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever you were. And it is just a wonder to behold. And it's not just this whole, I'm living a childhood fantasy seeing this movie and stuff like that. It's a really, really fucking well-made movie. Like the CGI is absolutely flawless. That I will never ever get over that visual effects Oscar snub. That I just cannot wrap my brain around that. I never will be able to either. The whole attention to detail and the endless ideas and creativity that went into this. And the fact that he spent so much time making this movie, he devoted so much time to this, and the way the monsters are designed too, how they're actually with the one that has the really sharp nose, how they're built to defend themselves, and how the Jaegers have to kind of fight around that and figure out the weaknesses and stuff like that. It's just all. Just so much went into this. It's insane, and the whole thing about how everything has its own lingo. Typically in movies that really annoys me, especially those young adult novels, the Maze Runner is terrible about that.
Mm-hmm.
But the great thing here that this movie does that those movies don't. When you watch those movies and they give you all that stupid lingo they made up. You're just this is way too much to keep up with. Just call shit by its real name. The stuff in this movie is so unique that the lingo actually makes it a lot easier to understand. How else do you explain drifting unless you have that term? You have to, really, really kind of say, well, there's this, and then there's this, and you get to do this, and then this, and then... It's with just one word, it's I understand what this is. Okay, we're good. And just the ideas they have going. The fact that you can, that they use that technology for Charlie Day to see inside the mind of the monsters is a really cool idea that I love. And then the whole angle of Hannibal Chow. I just love that character. He's almost useless. He's crucial, and there's a big reason he's here.
Mm.
But when you really watch the movie and you break it down, he's almost useless. At least in this movie, anyway. And obviously we learn in that mid-credit scene that he can always return if he wants to.
Oh, yeah.
And I am concerned that Del Toro is not directing the sequel, but as long as... Because for a while there it was put on hold, and it kind of looked like it might have been killed. But I believe it's kind of working its way we're working our way towards it now. Which is great. And talking about Charlie Day, by the way, he and Bern Gorman are the scientists, and they're the comedy relief. And they're that rarity where they're actually good comedy relief in the midst of this whole thing. Not to mention that not only is Charlie Day the comedy relief, but his character's really, really crucial too. His character is extremely crucial into how everything plays out and how they figure out what they need to do. And he's still really... I love his tattoos of the kaiju on his arms. He's got sleeves on his arm of just them because he just has this obsession. And Bern Gorman is a great partner to him. I love the moment when he goes to he fist bumps him the wrong way and just says "By Jove" as hardcore as he can. I really love that guy. He was he's been in a few movies now, but you might most recognize him as the Death by Exile guy in The Dark Knight Rises. But he's showing up in a lot of stuff now, and this was I really liked him here too. So yes, it's very. But for the most part, you're mainly watching this for the spectacular, insanely awesome action. That scene in the middle of the movie when he fucking drags the giant boat and uses it as a baseball bat, more or less, on the thing, and then this scene just builds and builds and builds, and just kind of keeps going because then you have. Because after that big... it's just filled with constant holy shit moments, one right after the other. Just when you think the scene can't be bigger. The scene everybody loves in the new Godzilla, when he opens the thing's mouth and breathes fire into it. It's like a holy shit moment like that, only like 4 in rapid succession.
Yes.
Because there's using the boat as a weapon, then there's like ripping its tongue out, then there's the fact that it has wings, which was, for me, that when I saw that, it was just like, oh my god. And then they're like in midair, they're like in past the Earth's atmosphere, and this Jaeger has a fucking sword. It just keeps going and going and getting bigger and more insane and incredible and awesome. And all of this just adds up to a really, really great experience. Seeing this in the theater was amazing. I'm so glad we took the 3D option too, which is something I would hardly ever say about any other movie. IMAX is the only thing that would have made it even better. Which I almost considered traveling to do that. But then I think just stuff came up, but I definitely would have. Oh my god. I'm sure it would have been head ache-inducingly loud.
Oh yeah.
But I probably still would have loved it anyway. So yes. So Independence Day is definitely what it is, and we love it for it. But this is kind of no contest. Pacific Rim is just too incredible. And I just love it so much. And I would definitely, if I had to choose, yeah, I'm definitely going to go for Pacific Rim, but
I knew that was going to happen.
We still all love Independence Day.
Right.
Okay.
So ends another edition of Versus. So next week, we're Star Invasion. Now we're going to go to Home Invasion. So yeah.
Slightly smaller scale.
Slightly smaller scale, given what's coming out next week. You probably guess what's coming up, so you might, maybe.
Did we do that on purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Of course we did.
I was like,
I know you hate doing that.
I wasn't even thinking about it.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
So, that being said, continue to watch the segments here on the Podcast Network. We had a brand new Sip and Snack that was up. Random Flavors did that on Saturday. Check that out. Ring of Honor, our first Ring of Honor podcast was Friday night, so check that out as well. AJ's Movie Reviews was fun this week. Check that out as well. Gaming with Ash returns tomorrow. All the wrestling content coming up. All the Horror Nights content coming up very soon. So, stick around. We're going to have some fun this year. So, that being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?
That's it.